coming. What a joy for us to be here. What a great crowd. Wow, I'm loving this. My name is Julia Margaret Liu. I'm the Associate Director at Powerhouse. Welcome to Powerhouse Arts. If this is your first time here, welcome. And if you're returning, welcome back. It is such an honor for me tonight to be moderating this conversation, a very special edition of the Powerhouse Arts Conversation Series with 3 of our in-house fabricators. Quick intro. Yay! Yes, they deserve all the applause. It's all about them. We have Dan Quinn from Public Art. Yay! Brian Ferreira from Ceramics. And Dennis Hrehowsik from the Digital Print Lab. Yay. So quickly, I will just cover some housekeeping. We have a quiet room that can be used as a sensory safe space. So if you feel that you need to use this or you want to take a call or something, you can find Jackie in the back and she will escort you there. Secondly, our wonderful building allows sound to travel very well. So if you take a really loud phone call outside, we will hear it. So I will please ask you to not to do that. And lastly, after our conversation, we will have about 10 minutes for Q&A and then a light meet and greet. We would love to meet you, tell us about your work, what you do, and why you're here. So yeah, why don't we kick it off? I did my introductions already really quickly. We are going to talk about fabrication tonight, experimentation, collaborating with each other across the studios, and what futures we're dreaming up here at Powerhouse. A term that we often use to describe what we do here is a hive. We're like a hive of bees working together, making art and sharing it with our growing community. And we have this amazing opportunity to have such a wide range of making services and processes in the building. And we wanted to invite you along on that journey. So we created this exquisite corpse sort of activity. There are clipboards in the back with these cards. And we're inviting you to draw something on the back of the card with crayons, markers, pencils, what have you. It can be a body part or an animal or a character or a landscape, whatever inspires you. And then at the end of our conversation, we're going to piece it all together and collage it into an exquisite scene. And it's going to be really fun and beautiful. Okay, so without further ado, I will please ask our fabricators to introduce themselves quickly. Please tell us your name, what you do here at Powerhouse, and how you got into fabrication.
Hi, my name is Daniel Quinn. I'm in Public Art as the Installation and Fabrication Manager. So I oversee the shops downstairs. So we have a rapid prototyping lab, metal and wood, and also a CNC. So I oversee that work as well as installations in the field.
How did you get into fabrication?
Me?
Yeah.
Happenstance. No, I mean, I've always been, my dad was a builder, cabinet builder, so I kind of learned a little bit from him, and then I had to unlearn everything that I know, and I worked in a photo studio that also made props, and that was kind of my inroad into scenic building, and then working at other shops at different times. I worked on a ship briefly, and that really informed a lot of what I do, even today doing rigging, hanging the pieces that are upstairs now. So that was my start, and it's really just solving problems. I feel like that's every day is a new one to solve.
Thanks, thanks Dan. Brian?
My name is Brian. I work in ceramics as a fabricator. I got into it kind of by happenstance as well. I went to Hunter College and had a really amazing professor, Sana Mussasama, who always would push me very difficult. Anywho, she recommended that I look into fabrication as a career choice, and I kind of landed in a plaster shop during the pandemic, which taught me the ropes, and yeah, that was my introduction.
Very cool. Dennis?
Hi, my name is Dennis Hrehowsik, and I am the Associate Director of the Digital Print Lab here at Powerhouse Arts. And I've always been kind of art adjacent. Like many of us, I grew up around graffiti. I was always obsessed with cartoons and cereal boxes and all that kind of stuff. And so I was always sort of headed in a graphic design, graphic arts kind of direction. And one of my first jobs in New York City, I was paying my way through Parsons, going to night school. And I worked in a gallery that sold antique prints, so I acquired all this print knowledge. And then that was prior to 9/11. That'll date me a little bit. But you know, I would work with these cartomaniacs and these print collectors, and if you had one of these items, it was an instant sale. And after the towers fell, the phone didn't ring, you know, for about 2 months, and I wound up finding a job with a gallery associated with Luther Davis's print shop, our director of print. And I was working at that gallery as a suit, you know, people coming in, trying to sell French naive style paintings to couples that didn't need them. And, but what was happening in the background was Luther and his team were making all the additions, and then they were branching out. They became this sort of mini atelier for a lot of emerging New York City artists, and I wanted in on that. And at that time, I was one of the first people that really had the Photoshop, Adobe, Illustrator suite of skills that was just kind of coming into fine art printmaking at that time. And I said, hey, I see what you're doing. I want to get in on this. And that's how I got started. So that was a 2-decade journey in screen printing. I've worked with probably 300 artists over the years, many of them household names. And about 2 years ago, we were gifted a grand format latex printer, 126-inch wide Hewlett-Packard printer. And they said, hey, this is something we can build a whole division around, a whole business around. Would you be interested in taking that on? And I said, sure. I needed something to kind of keep my interest, you know, in the business. I couldn't just keep getting 0.5% better every year. And so it was great to be a beginner again. It was great to be completely out of my depth. And since that program has grown, so we have a flatbed Swiss QUV printer. We have one of the first photo printers on the East Coast that has orange, green, and violet channels. I just hired my first employee,
Yay.
Alondra Acevedo, who is a CUNY intern. I love that story. So, you know, we're really fulfilling the promise here.
That's awesome. Thanks, Dennis. And I guess I will also introduce myself. My name is Julia Margaret Liu. I am the Associate Director of Operations. And while I am not a fabricator here, I have worked in, I have a background in architecture, and I did work in steel fabrication for a while. And then, you know, went to school for new media art and somehow ended up here. So with that, let's talk about some projects that you've done that required you to develop something completely new. I know this happens all the time with all of your projects, but tell us some stories about something interesting that's happened or come across your desk recently.
Well, I can start. We have the images up on screen. You see me there with the hairdryer. And a hairdryer is a very important tool for a printer, by the way. When we were hired in 2014 as consultants to help build the space out, and they asked me, what's the one thing you want in the space? I know I'm getting off track here, but I love that picture. And I said, I want to be able to plug a hairdryer in a socket and something else in that socket and still have it work. That's hard. That's a bigger ask than you might think. And the engineer that worked with Hrehowsik and Demeron, she stopped by every 2 or 3 months, and she still does, and said, Dennis, does the hairdryer still work with something else in the plug? I'm like, yes, thank you, it does. So I'm very appreciative. But moving on to the project that's pictured there, that was the, well, we'll get back to those banners. That was the Avram Finkelstein installation at the AIDS Memorial. And that was a collaboration with Dan, with Public Art. And so me doing the printing, those guys doing the install and all the hanging. But that was also the first time I ever used the giant Hewlett-Packard roll-to-roll printer, which I had no idea how to use in about 30 minutes of training from the installer. And so it was a hybrid print. It was all that scrim was printed on a voile fabric, which is a very sheer fabric, which we didn't know required a special part that Hewlett-Packard only kept in California. Yeah. And do you guys know what a hot truck is? So I didn't either. So a hot truck is when they have a truck and there's 3 guys in it, and they each drive 8-hour shifts, 24 hours a day until the part gets to where it has to be. So in order for Dan and I to meet Avram's deadline, we had to get the ink collector for the sheer fabric, hot truck from California to Brooklyn, just in time to put the installation up, what, like hours before? Yeah.
Wow.
So it's just one of those things where everything we do, it's always like a little bit of a stretch of what is supposed to be done with the equipment or within the genre, and it seems plausible, but it's always sort of that last 2 or 3% that's always so hard to make it work. And that was just a case of me overpromising and delivering at the end of the day, but and bringing Dan along for the scare. Yeah.
Dan, had you ever done anything like that?
No, never. I mean, in public art, we're giving a lot of prompts saying like, can you take this fabric and make it hard or make hard looking? Can you make this hard thing look soft? Can you do, like, it's usually taking what we have to keep relearning. Sometimes it's to say no, that's impossible, or, you know, we take on these projects where we're having to figure this out, figure out the materiality, figure out how to make it work, and it's, you know, having these other people here. You know, Dennis is a problem solver. I try the best I can, and we bring in outside people to do that. But it's usually we start with the material, we do the research, and we're pushing that material to the very edge. We just finished a project with Art DeMonte was the lead, and tried hempcrete, tried another type of mycelium product, and it just wasn't enough, and ended up using anthracite. So if anybody knows what that is, it's 300 million year old coal, and you get it from Allentown.
Wow, I wish.
And I wish I had a piece in my pocket to show everybody.
We have like pieces of anthracite all over the office.
And you can still see it. It's Audubon Nganke, and it's up at the MoMA atrium right now. But that was like a very intensive project, a very intensive R&D, and that's pretty much the norm for us. We did another project where we had to make a tent that I can't talk about where it came from or where it went. The people that know. And it was based on a dream that a producer had from an Italian tent in another dream. So it was like, had to be very specific, and ended up just like renting a rebar bender for a month and a half where we could have bought it, but making these pieces, making them look like the vision that they had, and that's also not uncommon.
Brian?
Yes. So there was a really fun project that we did in ceramics, making a double-sided urinal. They were pieces that the artist had spliced 2 urinals together and wanted us to reproduce it as a functioning toilet. And, you know, there were a lot of tribulations, such as making the mold, making sure that the holes that the water would stream from would actually give a decent enough flow to function as a toilet. And as a team, we basically hand-built a set of toilets that all functioned. They were hooked up to plumbing in a gallery in Las Vegas. Yeah.
That's crazy.
So,
Can you
Kohler,
say his name?
I hope so. Hugh Hayden?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We worked with him before on other projects, but a very talented artist if you look him up.
Yeah.
Just had a large show,
Yeah.
and it was each of these pieces were set in stalls.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you do
Listen
that if it's
gallery.
double-sided?
I mean, you gotta figure it out.
I know we started talking about collaboration with the Avram Finkelstein piece. What other projects have you collaborated on, and what's in the works? What are you allowed to talk about?
I mean,
I think so. So we're working on another project that, in theory, should be well within our wheelhouse, but is a bit of a stretch. We're working for a piece. It's going to be a 9-foot by 27 piece on glass, UV printed, and it's going to be in the U.S. Embassy in Hanoi, and so it's going to be a lenticular effect. So it's going to be layers of glass that are sort of sandwiched together. The image broken up in a way that when you aren't directly in front of it, it disappears. But then when you stand right in front of it at a 90-degree angle, the image falls into place. And I have to figure out how to make that by
yeah, that's the hope.
noon Thursday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're working closely with an artist to take a painting and render it into this piece, basically either 1-to-1, but it's a large piece. So, and it's math, I think, and is that it, math?
A lot of math. I don't write
Yeah.
anything down,
And
so it should be
math,
interesting.
Math and gold leaf is the, yeah.
And dreams.
And dreams, yeah.
So I haven't collaborated as much with the other shops, we've had opportunities, such as with this bean. We had a project where we were producing hundreds of these little beans. And some of them have designs. This one's a plain one, so I should show this. Initially, we had planned to create screens to print directly on them with underglazes instead of hand painting it. And I think we'll most likely have projects involving that as a possibility in the future.
So you would essentially like screen print onto the bean
Yes,
and then fire it.
yes.
That's so cool. Do you have any, are there any like designs planned?
And not quite as yet. We had some in mind for this, because if you look at it, there's kind of this blurring going on with some of them. Now, we could have used decals, but that always kind of shows.
Use what?
Decals, we have a ceramic underglazed decal printer.
Like a decal.
Decal, oops, sorry.
And just to give a plug for these beans, the ceramics team produced what, like 600 beans for our gala, the Powerhouse Arts Gala last fall, and a variety of different bean types. There are some for sale online at the Powerhouse store, so you can buy one. And Brian, would you mind opening them?
Yes.
They're really beautiful. They come together, but they also serve as dishes.
For beans.
They're amazing. Yeah, for more beans. Yes, it's a little bean box, a little bean treasure box. That's so fun. What else?
Well, I'm always bothering Dan. Dan has
Yeah.
a well of knowledge when it comes to various materials from wood, epoxies, metals. So occasionally there'll be a glaze effect that is safer to achieve without firing a second time or a third time. And we called it like cold finishing. So just a few weeks ago, I was bothering Dan for some advice on different epoxies, what kind of surface qualities they have, hardness, how they accept colorants, and yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of the magic is like, if you need a tool, Dan probably has it,
Yeah.
right? Or like, if you need a help with something, anything, Dan probably knows how to fix it, or like will also volunteer your time. How does that make you feel to be so valued?
I feel
and
great
needed?
to be needed. No, it's just those things where we built out our shop, and like the previous director who was here basically got every single tool, because when we're in the field, when we're doing work, one of our big projects the last couple of years was Pamela Council's Fountain for Survivors. And we were in Times Square for two nights and then almost a week after that of doing work on that piece. And it's like, if you don't have something, you have to come back. So basically I had 2 trucks parked with all the tools we could dream of, all the glue for nails, and I don't know, I guess it's not in this slideshow.
And it's not
Yeah.
like, hardware nails.
Yeah.
These are fingernails.
Oh yeah, fingernails. So the piece was a 18-foot carapace with a working fountain inside, covered in 600,000 press-on nails.
Who
And it
painted the
was-
nails? It's really beautiful. I wish we had a picture.
I should have put it in. But yeah, that's having everything when a client asks for something, or if there's a change in the field, and even that in our space, we have to be ready for really anything. So people know about that in this building, and come down to ask at least for advice, which is free. The tools are rentals.
Can you talk about like the shops too? Because I know we worked on, the public art shop build out, which is, still being completed and worked on.
Right, so we're still building out our space and just finishing up now. We had to consult architects and engineers, and I think had to have a 100-pound load on a square foot of one wall for some reason, which is crazy.
a
But
live
I built it
load.
to their specs, so I
It's a
think they're
live
happy.
load.
Yeah, no, it's so we're outfitting our shop to just be fully functional, to be able to build almost anything that can fit out the door, and that's going to be utilizing wood and metal and our CNC, which is soft metals and plexi plastics, a laser cutter, and we have access to a water jet that's in another space. So we're kind of gearing up now to be able to do those large-scale pieces, and we have some of that in the works, the glass piece with Dennis, as well as other sculptural works. And in addition, we're not doing just public art. It's vitrines, and we work in the shed and the High Line doing installs. So it's a pretty wide variety, but sometimes we have to stage something and build a pyramid. And
Of
tends
what?
to happen. Well, this one will be of coolers for an upcoming project, which is 16 feet tall and 15 by 20 feet. So, this is a great space just to be able to spread out a little bit. And, it's very unique. And I'm very lucky to be here, and I hope these guys feel the same way. But, to have the people here and to have the space and to have the tools, and then, great artists to work with.
Are you ever calling on these two for help?
Never. No, just when I need a distraction. No, Dennis works closely with us, and we've had a lot of collaborative projects. And in Abram Finkelstein's is the biggest one, where it was printing on voile, which was very difficult. He was the mastermind behind that, and then it was also registering and printing with silkscreen on that. So that's I don't know how we would have done it. I mean, we were installing it, but it was a lot of the work here that made Abram happy.
Dennis, I know you have this beloved Swiss Q UV printer that essentially prints on anything. Can you tell us more about it?
What about bamboo?
What about
We'll get to the
Daniel's head?
bamboo. Well, so essentially, you guys are probably familiar with like those really perfect like point of purchase displays, like the Mont Blanc store, the Tiffany store. Those images kind of back printed on plexiglass. That's typically a UV printer. It's a light cured ink that's one molecule off of light cured epoxy or a light cured nail gel. And what's amazing about that is it allows artists to put images on a wide array of things, from metal to glass, like the Hanoi piece, to fabrics, to woods. And so it can often be used to make standalone pieces. It could be used to incorporate images into a sculptural piece. And it can also do white primers. It can do high relief. It's the same kind of ink that used to be used in the 70s. It was developed to print Braille, like in a very high relief. And so that's kind of out of fashion. They use a punch card system now. But one thing we did with it, I don't know if you guys saw some of the prints in the lobby. The Starry Eyes print by Alex Dodge, that's a woodblock print. But Alex didn't feel the need to really carve those blocks for that print. So I not 3D printed, but UV printed the printing plates. So we did 5 32 by 24 printing plates, 180 layers of UV ink, built up to make the relief, and then inked, and then run through our 1924 Charles Brand press. So I really like that whole sort of full circle of printing. Like we're using the newest technology and 100-year-old technology and things we haven't thought of yet. So it's really fun to kind of combine all those things with new technology like the Swiss Q printer.
Have you tried printing on non-flat surfaces?
So it's pretty cool. I feel like I'm doing an ad for the Swiss Q Corporation. It can do an undulation up to about 6.5 millimeters. So if you think about like those corrugated pieces of steel they put like on a chain link fence for privacy, it can print an image on that even with that undulation, and it can still have full fidelity. Yeah, it's a pretty powerful machine.
That's cool. Could we print on a bean?
We could print on a bean. We have a max height. We can get an image on there for sure.
I think we should try.
I agree.
I'll loan you my bean. We don't have to sacrifice one of the store beans. It's okay. All right. So, I mean, as we talked about, like each one of you are members of teams, but you also have a lot of influence on the shops that you work in, right? Like you help dictate the flow and like what you're interested in. Like, what are you most excited about expanding into or growing?
Go ahead. So we have a new tenant coming in. It's a Haas 3-axis mill.
It's a machine.
Which will solve all our problems. Yeah, it's so it does aluminum, softer metals, and basically we can make components, machine components, out of it. So it'll be here hopefully next week. We'll send a flare up or balloons maybe, I don't know, to celebrate. But no, we have like the things that we're building towards is to save money and to not outsource as much. We want to push for some automation. So that's a 3-axis mill, sorry, I do that all the time. And then our CNC machine, which with the piece that's behind me at Cooper Hewitt, we went through 45 sheets of a fire retardant plastic, basically, to make these fret pieces for Levon Bell for Cooper Hewitt's exhibition. and we wouldn't have been able to do that by hand. It was incredibly time intensive, even for the work we did on the CNC. So hopefully, you know, as we're moving into the next year or two, you know, a KUKA arm, maybe, if someone wants to donate it.
Where are we going to put it?
Somewhere fun. I mean, but we want to keep, like, my goal is to keep a lot of the analog work still happening, because that helps inform, like, the actual construction of an object, and then supplement it and save time with automated processes and machines.
I'm excited for the new tonnage to come.
Yeah. 13,000 pounds.
Can you lift it by yourself?
Yep,
That's so cool.
with a forklift. Yeah.
So the shop that I work in, we're outfitted with a ram press machine, which, if you don't know about it, it's basically a press molding machine that uses a high amount of force and compressed air to power it, where you can, these beans, for example, were press molded from solid chunks of clay, right? And you just press a button, bottom plate moves up, compresses and squeezes out. Now, the beautiful thing about it is you can go from productions of maybe 6 a day to 120 a day. So it kind of opens up the door for us to get more involved in, you know, projects involving more industrial process.
How big can you go?
The bed itself, I think, is about maybe 30 by 30. So a lot.
Inches?
Yeah. So the die pieces have to fit within that. So for a shape like a bean, very simple. But
Is there like a height, a maximum height?
the maximum height, I don't know. But
Do you have an idea? Is that
Yeah.
why you're?
I don't, I mean, I have so many ideas.
I mean, they've traditionally been used for like production of, say, bowls or plates, like flat objects, but they do have the capability to produce reliefs, or not too high of a relief. But yeah, it's a very flexible and industrial production machine.
What do you want to make with the ram press?
Oh, a lot.
What does Dennis want to make with a ram press?
Bust of Brian's head.
Ooh, that would be tricky. That would be tricky. A lot of dimension. I mean, I came from a background working in classical crown molding, so I kind of have this intrigue for us to have more work that's, you know, not so much geared to a gallery setting, but interior design, architecture. And with a machine like that, you can really refine the process of making and have these reoccurring, almost perfected. Once it goes in a kiln, there's a lot of variables that can happen. But being able to produce from a mold that many pieces in one day.
How does that how does the ram press translate into making crown molding?
Oh, well, there might be some pictures here other than my
You
legs.
just want to wait for it to come up?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So,
Tell us about this piece. What are we looking at?
oh, this was
That's you.
we worked with the artist Hrehowsik. He had an installation involving several of these crates that we built from slabs, and they were paired with paintings and a sound installation, and it was fun. I mean, for a piece that large, the loading of it into the kilns was quite tricky, where Jeff and I were dismantling the kilns ring by ring,
Yeah.
loading the crate in, reassembling it,
I remember.
hooking the wires back up.
This is
Very involved.
before the blouse.
Yes, we have very large kilns now, so we don't have to do that.
Yeah, you just kind of like roll it in and close the door.
Yeah, but I mean, that project was probably the most collaborative one that I've experienced here with the team that I work with.
Why was it so collaborative?
Well, it was about 25-inch by 25-inch square slabs that we had to score and slip after cutting at a miter, pulling the boards up to stitch those seams together. And it's a lot of weight and a lot of touching. So when we were making crates, it was never like one person assembling a crate.
Yeah. Wow, fun. Dennis, how is the print lab going to grow? You just got a new printer, another new printer.
And more importantly, a new employee, which is really something I'm very happy about. And, you know, really I see this as a jobs platform. All these sort of industrial art manufacturing processes, they're all things that are sort of hidden, traditionally have been hidden, and often go to people from away. as they say. And so I'm very excited about our partnership with CUNY, our artist experience coordinator, Hallie, you all met on your way in. She was a CUNY member of our internship program. My employee, Alondra, is. And what I hope to do, what I've always seen the mission of Powerhouse to be is, one, a jobs platform for local kids to find all these sort of careers. And secondly, lowering the bar to entry for access to all this equipment. You know, what we're talking about, like my UV printer is $500,000, you know, I'm sure their equipment is in the same order. And for most for contract manufacturers and fabricators, there's a very high bar. Just to do a little 8x10 test on a printer like I have is about $1,000 at a commercial shop. And I basically just charge a square footage price. And, you know, I'm trying to make it very easy to sort of see how your work might translate into that. But what I'm really excited about, and this is in collaboration with our colleague Angelica, we're launching our artist subsidy program. Are you here, Angelica? Give yourself
right
a hand,
there.
because
Yay.
that's the most I am so excited about that program. On the heels of the work that Angelica did with the Ace Hotel, we had an artist in residency program, worked with Lauren Cohen, was our first artist in residence in the Ace Hotel. I got to work with Lauren in the digital lab, making a whole body of work for her. Stephanie Santana. I'm making, well, I can't say what I'm making, but some amazing rhinestone items with Jacob Almeida for that program.
Did you say rhinestones?
We're printing on rhinestones. We're printing rhinestone fabric that we're weaving. But anyway, that's beside the point. My dream is to take money out of the equation. And I really hope someday this artist subsidy program grows and grows and grows, where we're just here sort of making people's dreams come true in that sense. And that's what's the most important to me. And I hope to do more and more of that in-kind work. And I sort of hope that, you know, someday that's what everything here is. That's my hope.
Wow. Wow, you guys are normally very chatty, but for some reason, less so tonight. They're very controlled.
What do you want me to say?
Okay, well,
Different topic?
yeah, let's change the
Anybody?
topic. Do you have any questions for each other? We see each other every day, and we talk all the time. And it's always such a joy for me to, like, learn about the projects that you're working on. It's always so amazing to also, like, you know, visit you when you're installing things on site and seeing the work in real life. And then if it ever comes back to Powerhouse, telling you to move it. But yeah, so, I mean, I don't know, thank you for all the work that you do and all the art that you make. It's such a joy to, you know, witness magic being created. So I don't have any questions. I don't have any more questions. Do you have any more questions for each other?
I think we should open the questions to the floor.
Yeah. With that, are there any questions from the audience? Okay, we have a very eager hand, please.
Can you tell us a little bit more about this artist subsidy or whatever it is you're calling it?
I think if Angelica, if you would be so kind as to take a moment to talk about it. I don't want to misrepresent your program, but you're the mastermind. Would you mind coming up and answering the question for a moment?
For
Give her a hand. This is a big deal.
For our online viewers, the question was about the artist subsidy program. Would you like to sit with me?
Yeah.
Great. This is Angelica.
I was talking. Hello, everyone.
What's your role here? What do you do?
Yeah, so I am the Artist Experience Associate Director, which is a mouthful to basically say that I am in the programs team, which is delightful to be part of. And yeah, I basically am designing opportunities for artists to work with us and to do fabrication work and open up opportunities for them. I myself, I am an artist as well, so I feel very passionate about opening doors and sort of seeing, the possibilities for that. So the Artist Subsidy Program is basically a program that brings artists to fabricate in each of our shops where they get subsidized, so they don't have to worry about covering the fees, and really, really hoping to grow it. And right now we actually just we just open up the doors for the kind of first cohort, and they will be working in public art, digital, print lab or print shop, and ceramics. So we have 4 artists that you'll hear about soon, and each of them are creating projects in each of the shops. So yes, as you said, Dennis, we're hoping to open up the opportunities for more and more artists, as many as we can get. So yeah, that's the Artist Subsidy Program.
How often does this program run?
Right now, it will be run every spring, and yeah.
So the application goes out when?
The application goes out in December, and we go through the process of the jury, and it's due in January. So, yeah.
And is our jury the community council?
They will be. We had a different jury made of curators, writers, artists, one of our board members, which was really cool to, be part of that process, and we'll continue to build that up. So, yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. There you go.
Are there any other questions? I see a question.
I'm curious about the whole process of fabrication, so like from inquiry to like the final version, even installation or like de-installation.
That's such a great question. So the question was, what is the entire process of fabrication from inquiry to like installing and viewing and showing? And I will start at the inquiry process, I guess. We have an inquiry form on our website where you can submit your project ideas, like give us all the information you have. And we have an artist experience coordinator team that processes these inquiries and sends them out to the shop directors who assess whether these projects are appropriate for scale or things that we can actually feasibly do. Is the budget and timeline in line with our timeline? And then it passes on to these people. Now you talk about the rest of it.
Well, ceramics, we tend to work in sculptors or people who haven't sculpted will often want to produce works. And when we're lucky, it starts with a drawing. Other times you're building these concepts with the artist. And it's expressing in a way that you have to kind of slow down and remove yourself from it and not take it on as your own art. Because if somebody works in, say, collage, and you're trying to replicate that effect within a sculpture, or, some people have a classical training style that leans more towards very rigid forms, but if you have a more abstract leaning client that's more conceptual, you have to separate yourself from what you already know, but still rely on your training to reproduce a piece in their style.
Dan, what about you? Is it more complicated for you?
Slightly. So, what I was saying before, like the materiality can change drastically person to person, and some artists are hands-on, some are hands-off. And so we have to kind of feel that out as we're moving through the process. And usually we have 2 clients, or more. They're the artist and generally the institution that we're working with or installing in. That could be a museum or gallery or outdoor space. So we have to consider all those things and start from kind of the practical aspects. For public art, it's engineering, wind load, fireproof, and how it's going to function, how it's going to be installed, how it's going to be moved. That's where I start, with a drawing, and then we review it and try to match the budget, and then change a little bit and kind of go back for a couple of cycles. And then usually we set up, once we have a rough estimate for that, then we do a discovery phase. So usually if we're doing something with novel materials, like anthracite, then we do tests with it for a certain amount of time, and that's usually covered in kind of the overall budget. So that will yield kind of where we're going to go with the full-scale build instead of just going for it. So that's been our process so far. But it's a lot of back and forth and revisions and kind of getting up against like what the DOT says you can and cannot do. in public spaces.
Yeah, and you guys basically, you take it all the way to installation, and which is, if ceramics needs an installer, they'll call you. If the print team needs an installer, they'll call you. So you actually are the person, making it happen at the very end of the road.
Yeah, it can be, it is like that last 10% can be sometimes more difficult than the previous 90 as far as fabrication goes, but logistically, we spend a lot of time planning, and working together. We have a small team now where we're growing. Jeremy does most of the logistics on getting things to where they need to go and figuring out a lot of the plans for it and doing that research. So a lot to him and to Brittany, who's not here right now, is the director of public art. But it is a lot, and it takes a lot of people, and it's not just me and Jeremy and Brittany. It's a whole team, and when we do these big installs, we have 10 people sometimes, and those are overhires or other people, specialists in the field. So we're always kind of growing and contracting as we're moving through the year, moving through projects. So.
Dennis, what about you?
Well-
I think your process is different too, because it's a little bit more kind of like streamlined, right?
It's a lot more straightforward in the sense that with Dan's project, it could be anything, any material, any kind of location. At the end of the day, mine is going to be an image on something, integrated into something. With the caveat, though, that by the time a project inquiry gets to me, it's probably been shopped all over New York City, and everybody said no because it's either a novel material or scale or something like that. And so there's usually some discovery phase where, I think it's really important that the artist be there and sort of see those happy accidents that happen along the way that really inform the work. And so I try to get people in sooner than later and just really give them something physical to think about and sort of steer the work in that way.
Is that similar or different to the process in the pro print shop? How are we distinguishing the silk screen shop?
Screen printing versus digital, I think is how we do it. So digital lab versus our screen printing shop. Well, so I'm modeling that off Luther Davis of the way he used to do it. So most of the screen printing shops in town, it's sort of like, it's these 3 papers, these 2 ink choices, these are the sizes. And, when we were all cowboys 20 years ago, we were trying to get our first clients, there would be things like, Russell Young, one of our oldest, not oldest, he'd not appreciate that, but one of our longest standing clients over 20 years, he brought in this strange wetsuit material. Nobody wanted to touch it. They couldn't figure out what to do. We need weeks to do research and this and that. And we said, what is that? Wetsuit material? Here's your thing. Sent them home to think about it, and that was a 22-year relationship, based on just that little gesture of kindness to put an image on an odd material without thinking about it too much. So I take that same model, and that's what I do. I try to give somebody, something physical right away that's sort of, in line with what they want to do, and that informs the whole project. So, yeah.
What's the strangest material you've ever printed on?
A live dog. We had a demonstration for grade school kids, and back in the day, we had a shop on Atlantic Avenue before we were part of Powerhouse. We were still together, and as a print team, and we had a bunch of 7th graders come in, and the owner had 2 pugs, and we were printing T-shirts with the company logo on it. He said, "Hey, print the dog," and we stuck the dog on the hand press and printed the logo on the side of the dog. So, yeah.
Wow.
No, he was fine. Yeah, it's water-based. It's all good.
That's so funny. What did you print on the dog? Print the dog?
It was just the company logo at that time. Yeah, yeah.
Nice. Sponsorship deal. Ooh, look, there's a fun question. The question is, what other tools do you have in the ceramics shop? Thank you for your question, Jeremy.
We have a clay 3D printer that the team is being trained on, which allows you to extrude clay straight from the bag and 3D print with it.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Haven't dabbled much in like the more digital forms of sculpture. Jeff has, and I want him to teach me. But you basically create a file, you put it through a slicing program, and then you plug that into the 3D printer, and the printing bed is about, I think, 24 inches squared, and you can print up to about 24 of sorts, but the nozzle, you plug in a code, you have to monitor the machine as it's printing, but it kind of, there's a fun effect when it starts to go off track that some people really like. I like it.
That reminds me of Dennis's, the wallpaper printer, like the big printer that had like the registration marks weren't aligned or something, is that right? And you said something along the lines of that is probably not fine for wallpaper, but for artists, like we love that.
Little serendipity to show the hand a little bit, as it were, even though it's a digital process, for sure.
Wow. Do you think that what comes out of that large format printer is more of like a fine art because of it?
I mean, it all depends how you apply it. To make a long story longer, the big latex printer is a bit of a more commercial machine, and that's used more as an aid. Some artists, as you know, project, and there's been a trend in the last couple of years. Many artists will print instead of projecting because, you know, when you're trying to paint around a beam like this, it's like really fatiguing. So in that way, it's used as a tool to make art. But the Epson photo printer and the UV printer, you know, in conjunction with often some hand silkscreen printing, those are real fine art machines. Like we did the banners for the dinner and that kind of stuff on the Hewlett-Packard latex, kind of the more commercial things. But then sort of the finer images, like some of these pandas we have on screen that are printed on silver washi paper. That's a UV print with a silkscreen blend on top. Those things are much more sort of in the fine art genre, I would say.
Cool. And I guess back to Jeremy's question about technology and equipment in the ceramic shop, you also have these ginormous kilns.
Yes, we do.
That
they
are-
are giant.
Yes, they're like temperamental children sometimes. They work and then they don't, and then we have to like coax it and be like, "What? Tell me what's wrong, please communicate with me. How can I fix you?"
Yeah, I mean, they've been running pretty smoothly for the past maybe 3 weeks, actually more.
Were they a game changer when they arrived?
Oh, big time. I mean, with the crates, if we had that kiln at that time, we wouldn't be dismantling it, and we'd be firing more pieces at the same time. So it also opened us up to work with different clients because they want sculptures that are larger than the kilns that we had at the time. But now we can accommodate those artists.
And we didn't have gas kilns before the blouse came online,
We
right?
had some raku kilns, but they weren't hooked up yet. So, yeah, the gas kilns coming in, the blow kilns coming in allowed us to practice, you know, playing around with the atmospheric firings, which opens up a lot of glaze choices.
What does that mean?
What? Atmospheric
Like,
firings?
yeah, what does that mean in the ceramics world? Like,
Well, there's oxidation firing and then there's reduction firing, right? So one of them is when oxygen is being pumped into the kiln. The other one is oxygen-free firing, which causes a chemical reaction where oxygen is pulled from the chemicals within the glaze. Yeah, it's a rabbit hole. A very beautiful one.
Do you have a photo?
Of the kiln? It's probably
no,
on the
of
website.
the oxidation and reduction processes.
Oh, that's
actually.
Or
hard
you could
to
take
photograph.
everybody up to the ceramics.
Oh yeah, give them
Yeah.
a tour.
Is there like a window into the kiln where you can like watch it happening?
I wish. That would be beautiful. I mean, it did open up intrigue for myself. When I was in school, I had a sculptural background. I wasn't very interested in glazes, but some of the projects we've had have broken rules that I'd established in my head for glaze, where in college, very naive, I thought trying to achieve the same effect over and over, that's not real. But we've had projects where we had to. Or me thinking glazes were boring because my school had oxidation kilns that were pretty flat. With gas, there's so much nuance that you can get lost in these surface qualities on the surface and under the glaze. And these are effects you can't really achieve at an oxidation firing. You could try to fake it out, but there's a magic with a gas frying.
Yeah, and the team mixes many of their own glazes. Like, do you use any commercial glazes?
I think we've used like 3 commercial glazes. For the most part, we use homebrew glazes.
If you've not visited our ceramic studio yet, I encourage you to do so, not tonight, but at a later date.
Yeah.
We have an amazing glaze studio.
Yeah,
Is that what we're calling it? Glaze room? The glaze room?
one of the best I've seen. And very safe, very well ventilated with windows. Windows.
Oh, for light, not air.
Yeah. Just we're not in a basement. you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Any other, oh, wow, so many questions. I want a question from this person right here.
Do you do soft glazing as well?
Soft glazing?
Salt
No.
glazing.
I don't think we're allowed to do that in this city. Yeah.
Why aren't we allowed to do that?
The chemicals. There's a lot of chemical fallout from it.
Oh, bad. Oh.
Yeah,
Well, I believe you.
You can't have a wood kiln in the city for some
Oh,
reason.
yeah. Fire's bad. There is a question here.
I'm wondering, we have some students in the room, so do you have, or just anyone, at any age, if you're interested in becoming a fabricator, do you have any advice for them?
Yeah. The question was, there are students of life in the room. What is our advice? What advice do you have for people who want to become a fabricator or, I don't know, sit in these chairs one day?
I'd say stay open and keep practicing your craft. I landed in fabrication in a desperate way where I was
How
furloughed.
desperate were you?
Oh, I was very desperate. I mean, we all love the. I was furloughed from my coffee shop job, and I had just kept dreaming and begging the world. I just want to work in sculpture. I was a bio major, not anymore, and I was just begging the world to give me a job in sculpture. You know, I wanted to build a career in art. I did, but by accident. And it was just me kind of sticking with the course. And I had gotten so much advice when I was in college and learned a lot of, like mold making, I took very serious in college. So that job at the plaster shop, a lot of it pulled from my understanding of mold making. So it was like very on a whim. I was on Indeed, and I just saw this posting for this fabrication job at this plaster shop. Didn't think I would get it, but I did.
Wow.
I mean, New York is such a strange place. I think landing in fabrication in a city like this, you got to be a little open-minded. There's like scenic unions. You don't have to be in a union. You could just work for a scenic shop. And you're doing build-outs on facades.
Set design.
Exactly. And you start playing with a lot of different materials that are way outside your wheelhouse, but they sometimes still lean in what you know. So yeah, I would stay open, keep looking.
Dan, Dennis, thoughts?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, like, maybe try something else. Start with something else, and then you'll really appreciate it when you're in a space where you can work with all these people and work with all these materials. And every day is different, for good or bad sometimes, but it's challenging. I mean, we spend a lot of time problem solving and working out problems together as a group, and that's, you know, within each department, and then interdepartmentally, and with, you know, all the other staff, because you never know, you know, what problem's going to happen and how to solve that. And somebody here might have the solution because they've been doing whatever that is for 10 years. But it's like, I learned a lot from watching other people make mistakes throughout jobs, like always measure the elevator. That's actually the only thing I learned. But it was more like, you know, being in different shops. I was in a metal shop, in a wood shop, on a ship, worked in a photo studio for Martha Stewart, and had all these experiences where I can take all of that and put it into one place and really have, like, you know, answers for problems that come up if someone else asks me. So, I mean, I value that aspect of it. But go on Indeed, I guess. That's the real takeaway.
Yeah,
Everybody.
there's a really wonderful balance of both like a specialty of knowledge, but and a like general, broad scope of knowledge. Like everyone here, myself included, and so many of our fabricators, like we know so much about so many different things, but we're also very able to like focus on one thing. Like Dennis, you've been a printer for many years, and that's what you do. But it's like you've done such a broad range of projects that you know, you've experimented so much, you've done so many things. So I guess my advice is to like try everything, you know, make everything, work with your hands, see what sticks together, what doesn't, you know, just kind of like experiment and play with things and try to figure it out for yourself so that you can like carry that to someone else.
Yeah.
Oh, and I just want to add, there's like, I bring people in all the time where we're, you know, reaching out to friends of friends for fabrication jobs that are like, this is kind of weird. if you want to do it, like, it's definitely parts of what, I mean, at least in public art, where it's entry level, where you can come in, learn on the job. A lot of what I learned, with other people was on the job. And if people are aspiring to do that, like, that's a good way to experience it, work with your hands, be on your feet. Like, I love that type of work where you're moving around and gluing wood together, or like welding. And it's definitely, not, I feel like people there's a barrier to that. And it's not as much as you think. If I can do it with these hands, most people can.
This coming from one of the hardest working people in the building. So if Dan can do it, I don't know if anyone else could do it, to be quite honest with you.
That's not true.
But yeah, that is to say, like, being a fabricator, it's very demanding, and we work very, very hard.
Jeremy's got a pertinent question.
Yeah.
Burning.
Follow-up question from Jeremy.
How many processes have you taught yourself, would you say, in the past 5 years doing this project?
How many processes have you taught yourself in the past 5 years doing this project? As in,
I guess that's more of a question for Daniel.
yeah.
Very specific. 10? I don't know. It's hard to know at this point.
What have you taught
like,
yourself, Wisdom? What have you learned in the past 5 years?
List them. I don't really, I mean, like, it's more, relearning some things, or modifying, like, what I was doing before, and, like, really bringing them together so it'll work. I really need to learn computers. I feel like that's,
Yeah,
the
it's
biggest
true.
thing, that's probably the barrier to entry, which for most people that are younger, they can do CAD work and be online and do, like, really put things together without having to physically do it.
Yeah.
Which I'm on the opposite side of that.
Yeah, the interesting thing about the computer and the CAD work is that the computer stuff is very accessible, like, if you're in that space, but the equipment for that is, like, completely inaccessible. Like, you can't just get, like, a water jet machine in your backyard.
But you can make friends.
That's true. That's true. There's a question here.
Hey, so I think it's amazing you guys are constantly tackling new processes and these very sort of large stakes processes for artists or museums or big stakeholders. How do you assess the ingredient of time in the process when you're doing things that are exploratory? How do you kind of figure out how long it's going to take to make sure you can actually deliver?
That's a great question. Thank you. The question is, how do you manage your time when you make something for the first time? Dan?
I mean, it's hard to tell. What I was mentioning before, we've structured it so that there's a discovery phase. So you say, okay, we have this novel material, we're going to use it in a way that's never been used before, or adjusting something. We set a budget for that, and then we develop our own time, and usually it goes beyond that. And sometimes we're subsidizing with our own time. I'm really curious about that research, and if anybody's on Materials Connection, it's a group in Manhattan. You can get a seat in it, and it gives you, like, around the world novel materials. We had one project alone that was at Smack Mellon that was Valcromat, which is a type of MDF, extrusion, like aluminum, and then a shrimp leather that's made in the Navy Yard. So it's like I had to do tests to stretch this shrimp leather to fit into one of the windows in this structure. And that took some trial and error, because it's kind of like fruit by the foot to a degree. And it, like, came slimy and then tightened up like a drum.
Oh my God.
So I don't know how, visceral you wanted that description to be, but.
Is it like shrimp shells?
It's the shells, and it's a mycelium product.
Huh.
So, but yeah, that group all over the world, and usually you have to look pretty deep to find some of the things we're looking for. So yeah, we have to allow a lot of time, just like now.
Time management?
Oh, time management,
How do you
yeah.
manage your time? You're
Well-
here all the time.
Yeah, I am. It depends. Some projects give us a lot more leeway for the R&D stage of it, sometimes not. And a lot of it comes down to setting strict deadlines for that production timeline.
There are also some projects in your shop that you've been working on for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I think especially with ceramics, like, there's a lot of room for failure that is not your fault, right?
Yeah, and we have reoccurring projects that each come with their own set of tribulations that will arise, even though you've done the process before. There's a lot of variables when it comes to ceramics, so you kind of have to stay on top of it, but also stay patient, but not too patient. It's very tricky. It's a fine line.
How much time would you allow or like give yourself to do like one large sculpture for a client? Like in your dream scenario, how much time do you think you would want?
In a dream scenario, I would hope to do it as quick as possible. That said, larger sculptures do call for a lot more patience, even in the firing programs. You can't do a fast firing on a
Okay,
large
so what is
sculpture.
like the shortest amount of time for a large sculpture?
Shortest amount of time, let's see.
For the whole process?
Every single part of it, down
Yeah.
to the bisque firing, then the glaze firing.
Yeah, you, from inquiry to like, you send it out the door.
The quickest I've seen, we did I think it was about a 45 to 50 inch sculpture that we had to catch up on because of one of those pesky variables, but miraculously finished it within the deadline with about a month to recuperate. I think, I can't really talk about which project it was, but it was a large sculpture.
But like, how much time did that take? You're like
About
avoiding my question.
Well, it took a month, I said.
Oh, you did it all in a month?
Yeah, basically. There were two of them, but one of them had to be redone,
Wow,
and in a month.
wow. I did a crazy tile project in the ceramic
yeah.
studio last summer. And my friend came up to me, he was like, hey, I have this crazy project. It's insane, my ceramic studio won't let me do it. Can we do it at yours?
Yeah.
And we were working like day in, day out, every single day. And it was just the two of us actually, but we did it in 2 weeks, which was insane.
Do you have a photo of it?
Not on me,
It was crazy, but it was very pretty.
but we did it, yeah.
You did.
There's a question over here from Julia. So the question is, we each have our own artistic practices. What kind of things do you like to make? And I will start with Dennis.
So the truth is, over the years, it's kind of like the old saying, cobbler's children have no shoes. I've pretty much stopped making my own work. I
What
don't really
century
show
is
anymore.
that saying from?
Well, I may be dating myself. But what's fun for me is I'm all about process. It's like I came to the realization a long time ago that I am not this person impregnated with pictorial sensibility that has this big message to give to the world. That's not me. But I love making stuff. And so it just gives me this opportunity to work in a different style every week. I might work like Glenn Ligon this week. I might work like Micheline Thomas the next week. I might work like somebody else the third. So I really enjoy sort of channeling those artists and kind of letting them work through me as a vessel and helping them to bring their things about. But as far as creatively, I have other things outside of my visual art practice that I do now. I think it was in my bio. I'm the president of the Brooklyn Bird Club. I lead weekly migration walks. I teach gull identification seminars to the public. And so I really am living out my sort of performance life through that. And so that's sort of my mode of creative expression. I've sort of taken this body of knowledge I've built up over the years and try to figure out a way to make it entertaining and sort of digestible body of information for people to use for themselves that are interested in that. So
I like that you connected it back to a performance art.
it's all
You
a
are an
show at the
artist.
end of the day, right? It's whether you're doing sales, whether you're working with somebody. A lot of what we do as fabricators, you're really creating a space for people to be vulnerable and to be their most expressive selves. And so it's always cultivating that kind of performance out of yourself or the people you're working with.
Thanks. Brian, what are you working on?
So I didn't really study the wheel when I was in college. I was repulsed by it. But
The pottery wheel.
yeah, I did not like using the wheel. I was a hand builder. I loved sculpture. But in my free time now, I don't do much sculpture. I make teapots and various forms of teaware. A lot of teapots.
They're beautiful.
They're
Buy
so
one.
beautiful.
You want one?
Yeah, for free.
I owe you so much.
Brian made me a teapot with my favorite bird on it as a thank you for something I did. He put a woodcock on it.
Oh my gosh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, it was I didn't expect that. That's That was my favorite bird too. I had a whole character that I used to draw all over the city.
Wow.
That was a design after a woodcock.
Wow.
You guys know about the American woodcock, right? So you know.
Do it,
Well,
Dennis.
Yeah,
it's a really cool story because you are standing on one of the best places in the country to see the American woodcock in the next 2 weeks. And what's really special about the American woodcock is they do a dance that Julia and I are going to demonstrate for you right now. Are you ready?
Oh my God.
So when the woodcock gets hungry and it wants to get some worms, it does a dance that it stirs up the soil and it makes a little bit of a rustle. And they kind of go like this. So, so to answer Julia's question, that's my art these days. That's my performance.
Well, that's a hard act to follow.
Yay.
I'll be brief. I went to school for photography and printmaking, and I moved to the city in 2008. I don't know if you remember that year and what it was like, but I ended up doing other things.
Fabrication.
Getting into fabrication. That was the bottom fell out of the photo industry at that time. So it really, and then I found like set building and like scenic work and just making things with my hands was more fulfilling, and that was the only option I had. So it worked out. And that's 15 years of doing that. So I do
What
not
are you
have my
working
own.
on?
I don't have my own. I mean, I take photos of things I find in the street, which.
We talked about building a Dymaxion car bicycle situation.
If anyone wants to fund that, 25,000.
We can fundraise.
Maybe,
I
on the
hear
low
there's
end.
an artist subsidy program. We can
What?
still make it.
What is that?
A Dymax.
You'll see.
Can you explain? Dan, can you explain?
It's if you're familiar with Buckminster Fuller, the Dymaxion cars had 2 front wheels and 1 rear wheel, and so it could pivot from a single point. A lot of his things were called Dymaxion, or like there's a whole range of items. But this one would be potentially 2 bicycles in the front and kind of a shell structure, somewhat like an Airstream. So if anybody has 25, 50,000, 100,000,
It's a bargain.
yeah, I think it's a deal. But no, it was just like we could make it here, so it was one of those things. Most things can be made here. It'll fit out the door,
Yeah, as
based
long
on
as
time and money.
Anything else?
Yeah, and nails.
I am so lucky. In exchange for me making sure that the building works, these guys help me do fun things. Dan taught me how to weld last week, which is very fun. Brian is giving me throwing lessons on the wheel that I accept begrudgingly. I'm like, don't tell me what to do. But it's been a work in progress, and he's becoming a better teacher, which is good for both of us. And then, I mentioned the tile project that we did in the studio, and the work that I do is primarily Burning Man related, so doing projects that end up at Burning Man in one way or another. Any other questions? I think we have time for one more. Yes, right here.
This is a question for everyone. What is your favorite and worst or least favorite thing about being a ceramic maker?
Ceramicist? So the question is, what is the best and worst thing about being a ceramicist? Fabricator.
That's a tricky one, because I think a lot of those pangs of the process are things that I end up loving. But I think there's a lot of time sensitivity, and sometimes the kilns won't agree with you. Like, you're waiting for the clay to dry, then you're trying to do a very slow firing on a piece and you hope it won't crack after you spent a whole month on it. And then you take it out of the kiln after a long 3-day firing, and there's the tiniest little crack in it. And you're like, oh, it's fine. And you fire it fully and it gets bigger. That's pretty rough. But at the same time, it kind of informs the process. You start paying attention to these things more, and you dial in all of your focus on avoiding that issue the next time, and then it'll happen again.
There's smashed ceramics in the dumpster in the back, and I think I know Why now?
Oh, mine?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Uh-oh.
trial and error.
You found my garbage? Yeah, I mean, in my personal practice, I make a lot of teapots, right? And that takes quite a lot of time. And then you're like, wow, this looks beautiful. You love the glaze, this, that, the third. And then you try to pour tea out of it, and you're like, oops, that's going in the garbage. And then you do it again.
You try to pour tea out, and it doesn't come out.
Yeah, but you do learn a lot from repetition in a way that I appreciate, even though it can be a little frustrating at times. It's nice to practice patience. So.
Dennis, best worst thing about being a fabricator?
To sort of piggyback on what Brian was saying, it can seem like a real tragedy sometimes, but the reason we're master fabricators is because we made every possible heartbreaking mistake one could make, had every serendipitous bad thing that could happen in each of our processes take place, and we learn from it. And that's why we're here today, however many decades later. So sometimes those bad things turn into great lessons. But really my favorite thing is I like giving people what they want. I want to make people happy, and when somebody comes in and it's like, wow, I didn't think this was possible, and you made it happen and on time, and just those relationships that you build with that sort of camaraderie that happens when you're making something together in concert with an artist. That's the best thing, and those relationships in general. During the pandemic, people stopped coming in. They started to phone projects in more, and it was really terrible. And now that we're in this new space, people want to come and visit. People are out and about again. They're out in the world, and just meeting new people every day and having really cool, creative, awesome people to talk to every day is the best thing about this job.
Thanks. Dan?
I think probably the best part, as like Dennis was saying, like having something to please someone or to have a finished piece. I think the hardest part to getting to that end is like without a montage or a time lapse. Like all of that work that goes into it, all of the hours, the physical time can be difficult, and that reward is to present something or finish something and have it be real, from a drawing or a concept to a physical manifestation. And I think that is really satisfying to have that whole range, but it can be tough, like when it's a year long or 18 months or 2 years, and it's a lot of planning. But yeah, the reward is in the outcome.
Best and worst thing for me is that I genuinely have so much fun making things and building things that the work is really enjoyable for me. The worst thing is that my back hurts. And on that note, thank you three for your amazing contributions.
Thank
you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for your amazing questions and for contributing to this conversation. We wouldn't be here without you.